everybody. Welcome to the Brit and Yankee Pub. I'm the Brit, Phil Clark. Today we have somewhat of a different edition for you because it is with heavy heart that we are producing this show in memoriam for our past co-host and good friend in beer, Mr. Mark Naski, who sadly passed away earlier this week. We here at the pub are devastated by the loss, and we just don't know quite where to go, except to say that we had some really good times with Mark. Mark's chair over there in the corner sits empty now. It will do for a while, but as Mark would always want us to do, we will carry on and you have a good time, all right? That's what he always used to say. So we'd like to present this recording, which was done way back in 2012 at another great institution who has disappeared, and that's John's Tavern in Winfield, where John Kowalski, the tavern owner, introduced us to this guy. He's an expat Finn, and he knows everything about beer. You guys need to talk to him, said John. So we did, and we got to know Mark. And this recording is from our early days of the podcast, as I say, back in 2012, when the original Yankee, Mike Lingo, and myself would sometimes go to John's Tavern and record a show live around the bar with all the noise of the patrons in the background. Mark was very kind enough to come along and help us in this show by presenting his fantastic beer school. And any of you guys who knew him would know that this was just something he wanted to do. He wanted to spread the word about craft beer and beer brewing and everything like that to anybody he found. So Mike and I, not knowing too much about craft beer at that stage, got a real good, a real good lesson from him in this session at John's Tavern. And in this, I hope that you will listen to it and take some of what Mark has to say about beer so that you can understand it a little better. We've come a long way since Mark's first appearance. I managed to persuade him shortly after this recording to join us as a co-host, and he provided technical expertise, and his deadpan approach to things showed how much passion he had for beer, because everything was really interesting to him. He traveled across Europe and went to many of the German breweries. He went to the Belgian breweries, to the Trappist monasteries. There wasn't anything that Mark really didn't know, but he was always willing to learn. And he would always say, "Oh, that's interesting, I did not know that." I remember one story that he told was when he was in London way back, and he actually got into a taxi cab with the great UK beer hunter Michael Jackson. Alas, Michael, who's also no longer with us, had had a few to drink, but both he and Mark got on famously and talked about beer in the back of a London cab. And that's just what Mark was. He was a guy, he was a friendly guy, he could cook great food, he could brew great beer, he was a BJCP judge. And in this small tribute, we hope that it shows that Mark was always willing to share his knowledge. In the video version of this, which you may or may not be watching, it's out on our YouTube channel, we've accompanied the original audio podcast with some of our favorite pictures of Mark across the years. Maybe you're in one of them. He was friends to a lot of the brewers. We went down with him, to all the breweries, and we did have a good time with Mark. So I'm gonna raise my glass. Alas, the head's gone, Mark. Sorry, I know you like a nice little bit of head on your beer, but I'm just got one thing to say to you, Mark, and I hope we meet again in the future life. Kippish. And now we join the show, already in progress, as they say. Well, not quite, but here's our introduction. Take care. Love you, Mark.
Alright, quieten down now. Live from the Brit and Yankee Pub Studios. Another Brit and Yankee craft beer pubcast. I can hear the pints being pulled right now. Take it away, lad. You are paying for that beer, aren't you?
Pump up the bitter. Pump up the bitter.
Well, we better get going because here we have an action-packed show tonight. It's rather a special one. The reason that we're in the pub, in John's pub tonight, number one, we've got good beer in front of us.
Yes, we do.
Number two, we're going to be sampling another of the Vandenbosch beers. Oh, yeah, we're not allowed to say that because we brought it in. It tells us to find out. Okay, but actually, there's a reason for that. And that is that we know there's a lot of home brewers listen to our show.
Absolutely.
And people who also want to know how to taste beer a little more. So, who do we have as a special guest? Sitting to my left, your right. Well, actually, opposite you. Well, kitty corner to you, actually, isn't it?
Across the table. You make it so complicated.
I know.
Introduce him, for God's sake.
Okay.
He's ready to burst.
He's been on the show before. He's our wonderful official beer judge, Mark Naski. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hello, Phil. How you doing?
See? Give us a little something in Finnish.
Hyvää iltaa.
Yeah, right. That's what I said.
He just told you where to go.
Mark is a wonderful friend that we've come to know, lives locally in Winfield, and he is an official beer judge. Now, what organization are you certified from, other than the normal ones, right?
Well, there is an organization that actually covers Canada, too. It's called BJCP, or Beer Judge Certification Program.
Oh.
And it used to be together with AHA, American Homebrewers Association, but then they...
Hey, that would be AHBA.
They split up, and now BJCP is basically running the competitions and sanctioning and judging and all that kind of stuff. And AHA also sanctions the competitions, but BJCP basically trains the judges and so on and so forth, and does exams, so if you want to officially get your judging certificate.
Wow. Well, Michael, you know that we had talked on one of our last shows that we might want to try looking at becoming a beer cicerone, right?
Yes, we did.
And then we looked at what it needed, and we said, okay, maybe we can just become what was the lower one? A beer server? A certified beer server, CBS.
Yeah.
And
right,
I said, I prefer ABC. But then we talked to Mark, and Mark said, no, you should do the BJCP. So, we wanted to know a little bit more about what was involved.
Yeah, right.
And so, Mark, what is involved in becoming a judge?
Well, basically, you have to know your beer, not only by drinking it.
Okay, well, that's it. State the bleeding obvious. Know your beer. Yeah, right. Okay.
That was the first part. So you have to drink the beers and know your beer styles. There are about 70, 80 different styles defined.
Holy crap.
And, it changes from year to year when they reevaluate the beer styles, and new styles may come and all that kind of stuff. So it's alive all the time. But there are plenty of styles. So, knowing the beers, the history, what goes into making it, why it is the way it is, where it came from, like the origin, maybe water contributed to it, and other local factors. That's one part. But you also need to know how to make beer, how to brew it. You have to know the techniques and ingredients and fermentation and lagering and so on and so forth. So it takes a look at it from both sides, from brewing side and the tasting or drinking side.
Oh, so
wow.
It's a little bit more involved than just taking a simple
10-word
test.
What was that you were saying? I think you were
I
in
said
the
it's
background.
a little bit more involved than taking a 10-word, 10-question test and saying, okay, you're a judge.
And you remember, Mike, we took the dummies test down there at the...
and we did find out we were certified dummies.
Yeah, so I think we were. Well, we got 60% of them right.
We got 60%.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I've actually, on my iPad here,
have something that you can download for free. I think it's for free. The Beer Judge Certification Program, Beer Styles.
Right.
And this actually is great because it tells you everything you need to know about these different beer styles. Now, I'm reading through here and it says aroma, appearance, flavor, mouthfeel, overall impression, and so on and so on and so on. What exactly are all these different categories when you're describing a beer? Because if you've listened to us, and I suspect you do every time there's one that comes out. He's raising his eyebrows.
He's got a great poker face.
Yeah, he does.
He does. I would not want to play cards against Mark because he's got a great poker face.
We basically taste it, say, oh, this is pretty good, it tastes good, it's got a little of this, a little of that, and then we rank it. Now, tell us a little bit more about the qualifications.
Well, you're going the right direction because that's where it starts. However, there's like 5 different ways to look at a beer, and only 20% of the evaluation will be your own judgment, the way you look at the beer. The rest of it's already predefined in the BJCP guidelines. They tell you what the aroma should be like, what it should look like, what the flavor is, and mouthfeel. So you comparing what you have in your glass against given guideline.
Okay.
And these guidelines are written by some renowned judges and people that know a lot about beer, brewers, and so on and so forth. They traveled quite a bit and tasted the original beers at source. So it's pretty good selection of attributes for a beer. So anyways, you want to go this one at a time or so? We talk about aromas and so on and so forth.
Oh, excuse me, I'm all choked up about it.
Why don't you have a little sip?
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's look at what we've actually got in front of us now. Mike, you and I have got a beer in front of us that is rather dark in color. Mm-hmm. Mark's is a little lighter in color. So let's pay attention to ours first. What are you drinking, Mike?
I'm trying to remember now what we ordered when we came in. You told me once, and then I forgot what it was.
It's the Bridgeport Dark Rain Black Pale Ale. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we know that pale ale is reasonably hoppy, but not too hoppy, and it comes usually in 2 styles, American and English. Hang on, he's coming in with it. See, we were trying to impress you with our knowledge.
Well, the thing is, once you do these things, I think they should be done in a certain sequence. Oh. And the most fragile part of it is the aroma. Because when you pour your beer, the aroma may just disappear very quickly. So you have to get to that first. So basically, when you pour your beer, put your nose in the glass simultaneously and try to see what comes out of there. So that comes right away, up front, the first thing you ever do.
So we've kind of screwed it here by the fact that we jumped into it.
We already started drinking, but usually when we're sampling beers down in the pub, that's the first thing we hit on. It may not be within a second, but it's within 10 seconds of pouring. We're usually doing a smell to get all the aroma and everything right off the bat.
And I have a bit of a problem with the aroma. Is it obviously, if you have a bad sense of smell, that's going to impede you?
Absolutely, it will, and a lot of people have it. If you have a little stuffy nose or something like that, immediately affects it. But there's also another way of doing it. Once you drink, at the same time, once you drink the beer, you inhale some air with it, so you get some of that impression maybe from the background or from the backside of your nose. So you can inhale and drink at the same time. So you may get an impression better if you have a stuffy nose or something like that. But definitely you're impaired if you don't. Your nose is not working properly.
And with a nose the size of mine, you wouldn't think that was the problem.
Right.
But it is. So the fact that we actually had this poured earlier on has kind of lost the initial impact of the smell.
Also, if I may say, different beers have the aromatic qualities presented best at certain temperatures. And very often it is that when the beer warms up, new aromas come out. So very seldom you serve beer absolutely ice cold like 40 degrees or 35 degrees, because the aromas may be kept in there. They don't come out unless the beer warms up. So you should take that into account when you serve beer. The proper serving temperature is important here.
And we're finding more and more, especially with this, even the bigger breweries, but even the smaller ones are putting on recommended glass type, recommended temperature. I mean, they're really hitting on all of it to make sure you really get the best experience out of their beer, which then you'll want to go back and buy more. So it just makes sense to do that.
So the average person who's got just a regular, I mean, I wouldn't suggest drinking out of a Pilsner glass unless it's a Pilsner lager, but the average person has got a beer glass, right? We've got straight up American beer glasses here. Is that adequate if they just pour it in and allow the foam to come up? I mean, is there something to the pouring as well?
Yeah, there's some to the pouring also, because some beers you have to really pour that the foam comes out and you get more, the aroma agents come out better. Some beers you just don't want to do that. Want to preserve the aroma in it, let it come out on its own. So there's different ways depending on what beer you have.
Wow. So far, we've only gone past aroma and pouring and temperature, and it's like we haven't even tasted it yet.
Right. Well, you know what? And we found that, like, even here at John's, they have different glasses for some of the different beers. I mean, it's not straightforward. They do have like a snifter for some of the stouts or some of those that you're not going to get, a full pint. You're going to get it, in a snifter where you can actually warm it a little bit, let it sit, get those aromatics really working on it.
So that's an interesting question. Okay, now he talks about a snifter, and what the shape of brandy snifter is kind of pointed so that the aromas push up. Sam Adams came out with this special glass at one point in time that looks a little bit like Mae West, very heavy, bulbous at the top and thin at the bottom. Does that, in your experience, do anything to focus the aroma?
I don't really know particularly about the Sam Adams glass and what it does. I have those at home, but I don't see or notice any difference. And I have to say here, my nose is not the most sensitive, so I may miss something that some other people will get. So it's very personal experience that way. Yeah.
So you don't have to go with the rules. You just put it in there. It is if you follow a certain approach, then it's the personal experience, and you're still going to get differences of opinion, right?
Absolutely, every time.
So what do we got then? We got the temperature, the way you pour it. We've got the aroma. What comes next?
Well, what comes next is the easiest. That's the appearance. Since we have to remember at this time that the drinking beer is full body experience. You have all your senses. If not earlier, the next morning you'll feel it in your muscles. So you will have it all, or your head. Oh, there's a muscle there too. Yeah. Anyways, so you feel it's full body experience. It's not only like you just taste it or whatever. That's why we talk about aroma. The next one is appearance. So that's the easiest. Beer should look delicious. It should be poured. It has nice head. It looks something that you want to drink. Not just put it in some kind of vessel, any temperature, say here's your beer, or drink it out of a bottle, just who cares, okay?
Right.
That's abusing beer. I think it should look delicious. And every beer, it says what it should look like.
Okay. So, Mike, what does yours look like? Now, admittedly, listeners, we have had this poured for a little while.
Right.
When it came, it had a little bit of a head on it.
Right.
But, what does yours look like?
Well, it's dark in color. It's not black.
Did you see why I resisted making the joke? I usually say, what does yours look like? And now let's have a look at the beer, right?
Yeah,
see,
right.
I was very... we got a guess.
You blew it already.
We got a guess.
You blew it.
I did?
You did.
Really?
You
Did I enjoy it?
Meanwhile, back to the beer.
Okay, meanwhile, back to the beer. Okay, so...
It did have a little bit of a head when it came, but quickly dissipated. The color is very good. It's very dark, but it's not black where you can't see through it. I can see through it a little bit.
Yep.
The lights are kind of dim, but all in all, it's a very good color for it meets up to its name.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion then, Mark? Let's get the official. I mean,
I'm not official any which way, but it looks good for the kind of beer it is.
Yeah.
See, I would point out that these dark or almost opaque beers are harder to see what's in there. because they're so dark, you can't really, without your flashlight or something, see if it's clear and all that kind of stuff. But it definitely, when you have light beers like Pilsner, Kölsches, wheat beers, filtered wheats and that kind of stuff, you can see if it's clear. And if, say, Pilsner is cloudy, it indicates something. Normally, Pilsner is not cloudy. Its filter is crystal clear, crispy, nice-looking, big-head beer. If it doesn't look like that, there's something wrong with it.
Okay, so if somebody would... Okay, and I know the answer to this. I'm setting you up. If somebody were to pour you a German wheat beer, all right, a lot of people would say, oh, look, it's cloudy, but that's not a Pilsner, right? That's a whole different style.
Right.
It's supposed to have the cloudiness, right?
Exactly. We expect the German wheat beer to be cloudy because if the trop is there, you don't get rid of it.
Okay.
So the yeast is there, so it should be cloudy, and it contributes to the aroma and flavor of that particular style. So it's per style, I would say.
So here's a good tip, I guess, is if the beer is good looking, then is it going to affect... That's not really a tip, it's a question to you, Michael.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
If the beer is good looking, is it going to affect your judgment of what you see?
Well, I think in the long run, yeah, the appearance of a beer is one of the things you are going to be judging it on. So, yeah. But we've ran across beers where, we poured them, this looks really good, and it turned out to be skanky. Right. So that's why appearance is only part of the whole picture.
Right.
So, I mean, it's...
And I know you know how I like the look of Schlitz beer, okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, as a domestic lager, if you pour a Schlitz on a hot summer's day and there's a little dribble running down the side of it and it looks real good,
picture perfect.
It's attractive, right? I mean,
exactly.
But,
Yeah.
and that adds to it's not a bad, but you're not expecting much, but you get a better experience.
I would say one more thing about the appearance is that if you're drinking a beer that should have head, like it's a foam, and all of a sudden you have flat, it's like, or a juice that has no head on it.
Yeah.
Then I don't think it looks attractive unless it's part of the style. For some reason, it doesn't have.
And our English mild beer has very little head.
That's correct.
But that's because it's more of a session ale. I don't know what. Yeah. I don't know what. Well, I mean, it's the carbonation that.
And about English beers, anyways, if they're cask conditioned beers, they have very little foam or head on them anyway. So, but that's the characteristic of that kind of beer. Then again.
Okay, so we got what we're looking at. What's next up on our list?
Well,
okay, I haven't tasted the bloody thing yet. Still.
Well, you prepare yourself and it tastes better that way. But I say the flavor is next, and you were talking about adjectives maybe earlier. This is where you need really the most adjectives to describe the beer, because this is where you get the most points, and this is where you really see how good your tongue is.
Oh,
now,
that's what she said.
Now, before you go and taste, is there a certain place you should hit, or just let it go over your whole tongue, or concentrate on the back end?
No, yeah. What I say, let it go over the whole tongue, because different parts of tongue taste different things, and that's how you get the full experience, and you start distinguishing them. Okay.
I'm just sitting here biting mine.
Yeah,
I'm biting mine.
biting
okay.
yours,
If we were in the pub, it would be a whole different thing. Sorry, carry on.
That's okay. And then you also, when there's sour beer, see if you start extruding saliva because of the sourness, acidity, what you taste.
That's right.
You also notice that. But yeah, you should go all the way through, and basically you concentrate on three things up front right away when you put it in your mouth. What happens in the middle and the aftertaste. And this is where the difference is between beer tasting and wine tasting. You're never going to have the aftertaste really in wine tasting, because you dump it. You never swallow. You just swish it in your mouth and then you dump it. In beer judging and tasting, it's essential that you swallow it, because you need to have that aftertaste. Lingering, what lingers in your mouth, that's important.
And that's when we've been doing our tasting. What will make or break some beers, where it'll get an extra point or a half point, is that aftertaste. Yeah. Where all of a sudden, hey, this is a really good beer, but then the aftertaste, it's giving me a little bit of a metal ting, or it just doesn't finish really good. I mean, that seems to be another essential part is that aftertaste. Not only when you first let it pass your lips, but that very last breath of air you take, and what's your impression all the way through. It's very complex, this beer drinking.
It is.
It is very complex, and I think the complexity makes it interesting too.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's, as I said, full body experience and all on all senses. It's if you put your ear against the glass, you hear it. Hissing sound, so that's beer talking to you.
I've
so
never
it's
done
also,
that before.
Also in your ears, okay. So it's not only
you've had a
in
few
your mouth.
I hear the sea.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you want to try that one too? That's part of it.
Oh, no, wait a minute. That's seashells, isn't it? Yeah. Now, hang on. Talk to me. What is it? That's like the old joke, right, where the guy's got a glass of beer. Or,
Hey, what time is it?
Yeah, right. Hold on. All right, let's take a quick break.
All right.
And come back and see what the next... I don't know if we finished with mouthfeel, but we'll come back in a minute. All right?
On today's show, we're looking at a new report that dispels the myths surrounding the beer belly, because science tells us that actually drinking beer in moderation is very good for us. Cheers.
All right, we're back after a really short break and a pee. I mean, I didn't say that.
Whatever.
Yeah. So we're sitting here with Mark Naski, official BJCP beer judge. The beer that we actually have in front of us, or Mike and I have, is Bridgeport Dark Rain Pale Ale, and it's a dark pale ale. Mark has already finished his. And he's turning around. Now, Mark is trying Marston's Pedigree Ale, which is a delicious beer from the parts of Yorkshire in England. This is on tap on a hand pull and a nitrogen here at John's, and it's very, very tasty. We'll concentrate on our beers in the test, and then you can give us like an official feel of Marston's. So, okay, we got mouthfeel. So when I tasted this beer...
Oh, your mouthfeel now, you jumped over a little flavor already.
Over the what?
You talked about enough of flavor.
Oh, wait a minute, hang on a minute. So, okay, so I put it in, and mouthfeel is different to flavor.
Correct.
Then, is it? So explain the difference between mouthfeel and flavor.
Okay, now we can use your famous adjectives here, I think,
That's adjectives to the rest of us who don't
Adjectives.
speak Finnish.
Adjectives.
There you
Okay,
go.
I'm sorry. I have an accent.
Yeah, I know. I write with an accent too.
Well, the point is, now, in the flavor, you can say sweet, sour, bitter, a bubble gum, or banana, or clove, or whatever. Those kind of things that are actually flavors that you can taste. Mouthfeel is like how thick the viscosity of beer. Is it like water, or does it just stick it to your tongue, or how much carbonation there is? Like, is it a little fizzy, or is it just flat?
Gloopy.
Gloopy.
Gloopy is a word I think we've used.
Right.
It's a little gloopy.
Those are for the heavier stouts,
Yes,
and imperial
exactly.
stouts and such like, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so mouthfeel is how it feels on the tongue, not
Yes.
so much the taste, but how it feels.
correct.
So I can attest to that if you have a really good stout, and we're going to be tasting one shortly, it really goes down smoothly. The beer we're drinking, I think, is got a fizzy feel and a thinner feel to it, but then I would want to go on to the actual adjectives about what it tastes like, and to me it's very malty.
Yeah, malty again is a flavor compound. You say malty, then that's flavor,
Okay.
not mouthfeel.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people say it's velvety, smooth,
Ooh.
and that kind of stuff. That's also mouthfeel. When you put it in your mouth, it's like something real soft,
Right.
nice, and that's also the mouthfeel.
I have to say, Michael, beer tasting is very sexual and erotic. Mark.
Yes.
Okay, so not Mark, Mike. Hang on, I got two M's here. What is your description of the dark pale ale?
I would go with it. It is a little bit on the thinner side. The feel. It's a little bit on the thinner side. It's not as thin as a light beer. It's not as heavy as a stout. I'd say it's really balanced right in the middle for me.
Okay.
As far as almost like a thickness, I kind of think in my mind as a thinness to a thickness.
Okay.
On how it feels on my tongue and that kind of thing.
So Mark can comment on your. And I'm putting you on the spot, but I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Okay,
yeah, you have to be when you taste these beers and evaluate any one of them. If you make a comparison with a style, like you said, stout, you have to be very careful because, say, Guinness in the original form is one of the thinnest beers there is. It's like water, and then again, the Imperial Stout in the other end is very thick, cloyingly sweet in a way. So you have to be very careful when you say stout. Which one do you mean?
Right,
now,
right,
are you in the low end, or high end, or in the middle, or whatever? So you have to kind of explain yourself what you mean by it. I just say warning here.
No, that's a good idea.
All right, so we use then a lot of adjectives to describe what we taste, and you've mentioned a few of them. I can only taste malty in this, and then it follows up with hoppy. Hoppy is hot. Is that a descriptive?
Sure. Hop gives you basically three things, and we can discuss quickly. Hop gives you the aroma. If you have in the nose the hop aroma, you can tell that. Then he also gives a bitterness. How bitter? How much bite? Somebody calls it bite. And even if it goes over, it can be called astringency. It's too hoppy. And it also, the hops have flavors. Some of them are flowery, some of them are grassy, and some of them piney, and all these. So hops give you all three dimensions.
Wow.
So the hops you can actually bring up in a couple different facets of rating a beer. Three different areas that you could actually say, well, this is hoppy because of this. It could be hoppy because of this. So you could actually use the phrase hoppy a few different times, but then with an explanation of I'm getting hoppy because of...
Yeah, is it flavor? Is it flavor you're tasting, or is it the bitterness?
Right.
Or is it just the aroma that goes into your nose? Yeah. Right. And as far as brewers, it depends on when in your brewing process you apply the hops. It gives you all these three different dimensions, okay? So it's really the timing when you add them. And of course, then hop varieties, countless varieties of hops, and they all have their own characteristics. We don't go into that this time, but it's really when you add them into your brew, that's what creates all these three sensations.
Okay, so we're down to the wire here. What comes next after we've actually tasted it and said, I don't like that, or I do like it, which is essentially where you're going to go,
Yeah, that's where it is. Your personal impression or overall impression. It's called officially overall impression.
Oh, okay.
But that's really where you, as a judge, say your own opinion. Of course, being nice to the brewer and so on and so forth, you use nice language when you say this tastes like...
Is skanky official?
Yeah, skunky.
Skanky?
Skanky, no, not really.
Okay.
Skunky.
Skunky? But not skanky.
Not skanky, no.
Skunky.
Oh, okay.
You got to watch what you say to these people.
Yeah, it's...
And you said that your personal opinion is only weighed about 25% of the overall...
20%. It's 20%. It's 20%. 20%, and that's where you really say, did I like this beer enough to drink another one? And say why I like this beer personally. This beer had these things are really good that I like in this beer. Also say, and then these things are not things that I really did not care for so much. Okay, so that's how you give your impression.
So there is a certain amount of subjectivity to it.
That's it.
But there's also a factor of objectivity. In other words, they've classified where the beer characteristics should land on a scale. So you're really getting a balanced opinion.
Yes, that's very correct.
Now, I guess from the last aspect of it, there's also bitter IBUs, international bitterness units, and then there's also ABV, alcohol by volume. Does that figure? I mean, I know you, Michael, you love the 60% and
Yeah,
Oh, no,
right. No,
that's
you.
bourbon.
That's bourbon, yeah.
Does that figure into any of the judging, or does that not really come into it? Because
Yes.
that's a characteristic of the type of beer.
Yes, it all does, okay? And, of course, now as a judge, once you see the numbers, you should be able to now, when you have your beer in front of you, see if that bitterness fits in the range given to you. And that's sometimes very difficult because there's all these other flavor factors that impact it, you know. So it is, and especially if you have a big beer, you can have higher IBU and it still tastes less than less IBU in a light beer, small beer. So it is really subjective. So that's very difficult, but it factors in, definitely.
Interesting. Well, give us, you've got in front of you, and I know you've been drinking this for a while, and I've had a few pints as well when I've been here. You have Marston's Pedigree English Bitter. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
And it's on hand pull, a nitrogen hand pull, which is kind of interesting, different to the cask, not cask fermented. Give us your, what you would say about this beer, because then we can kind of wrap and bring it all up together. He's sticking his nose in it right now.
Okay, well, you asked me, so if we go all these categories that we're talking about, it has a slight malty nose, not much hops at all. So the malty sweetness is in there, and there's some of the fruity character that normally the English ale yeast produce. So there's fruity like apple type of thing in there also. And then by looking at it, if you go by the appearance, it has nice white small bubbles head that stays for a long time, and that's because of the nitrogen that they have in there that's causing it. And then it's a medium brown and it's slightly hazy, okay, which means it's not filtered. Most likely they don't filter them. Then we go to the flavor. Okay, now I have to take a sip of it. Okay.
I gotta say, while he's doing that, it does look good when the head sticks around longer.
It does.
His beer just looks that much more appetizing, and you want to drink it, looking at it, because it's got a little thin, real fine, creamy-looking head, and he's an inch down, and he still has a little bit of head, and it still looks so appetizing.
And I understand that as it goes down the glass, it's called lacing. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's get back to his assessment.
Okay, so back to the assessment.
Now, when I tasted, we said we.
Are you allowed to call it a slurp?
Yeah, you can call it slurp. That's all right. Anyways, it has a sweet malty start. So the first thing that hits you is the malty sweetness. Then it dries up when it goes further, and in the middle, I taste the apple or the fruity character again. It's in the middle, and then the hops kick in, hop flavor especially, some bitterness, but there's more hop flavor in this one, and that sticks in the back of your tongue, and once you swallow the beer, it stays. So it has this hop flavor lingering in your mouth for a long time. So that's about the flavor of it. It's well balanced because it has the maltiness and hop bitterness. They are in balance, okay? So it has both, and it makes it really pleasant to drink. If we talk about the mouthfeel, I guess it's light to medium body. It's somewhere there in the light side of the medium. It's creamy. Okay, that's part of the mouthfeel. It's very creamy. And again, the nitrogen does that too, I think. And there's not much to say about the mouthfeel. Otherwise, it's hard for me to figure out quickly anything else like. Then, as far as the overall impression or my personal opinion, it's very nice beer that I would drink the second one and third one. There's nothing offensive about it, and at this time we can also say there's no brewing flaws, such as it's a homebrew. We'd always expected some brewing flaws. Occasionally, these professionally made beers normally don't have them, like diacetyls and whatever have you, that don't belong to the character of the beer.
He said a big word.
Yeah.
Well, I will find out about that later. But
right. Anyway, so to me, it's very nicely balanced, and it's also, I would call it session beer because of the low alcohol contents. ABV is kind of low; it's around 5 or less than 5 even.
4.7.
4.7. Thank you. So you can drink more than one of those and enjoy.
That's good. Wow, what a description. Now, how long would that, in a beer judging contest, how long would you take to assess your beer?
They say you should take about 10 to 12 minutes per beer when you assessing them.
Wow. So Mike, our little 5-minute doodle is trying to squeeze in 6 or 7 beers. We should slow down.
Yeah.
The fact that in competition you have to write it down, so that's where the time goes.
Right. Oh, you got.
So
Oh, wait a minute.
Because they got to take
You
notes.
got to write as well. I don't believe it. All right, so we've gone through the different characteristics. I mean, here's where Mike and I would then say, well, Mike, what would you rank this? 1 being skanky, or maybe I should say skunky now. Skunky.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
And then 5 being, I'd go out of my way to have another one of these. What would you rate the Bridgeport Dark Rain Black IPA?
Personally, I would rate it about a 3.5.
Okay.
It's not bad, but I know there's other ones out there that I would prefer. So.
Well, you've got into the hoppiness recently.
Yeah, I have.
And this is quite hoppy. I mean, it's kind of. I think the word I'm looking for is it dries your mouth out a little.
It does a
towards the
little
end.
bit.
I don't think it's as stringent to the true word, but it's good.
Yeah.
What would you rank your Marston's pedigree as?
Well,
On our scale, because that's the everyman's scale.
Well, I would say that the best scale is the 1 to 50 scale that they use at
Holy
BJGP
crap.
officially.
1 to 50.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
Because that's so many categories, so you got so many points per category.
No. Every beer has its own 50 points, regardless of category or anything. Every beer has its own 50 points, and this I would rank this high 30s.
Okay. So pretty much right in the middle then.
Yeah, a little above middle.
So about 3.5, like.
Yeah, well, 3.5, so somewhere there, right? Yeah, it's better than the average, definitely.
There you go. Yeah, that's real good. Well, we're going to take a quick break.
Hey, what do you rate it?
Oh, well, I
You
rate
always
it.
seem
Yeah,
pretty
you know
good.
what? I would go 3, and to me, a 3 is it's a good standard beer. I enjoy drinking it. I would have another one. If there's something else around, I'd perhaps have something that I preferred. But any port in a storm, as they say.
Yeah, right.
I like
Okay.
these. I like these black beers. That's a new style, isn't it?
Black beer itself, there is a style called
Right.
Schwarzbier in Germany, and that's the original Schwarzbier. But now they start putting the black malts in all kinds of beers, and most of them are not officially any styles.
Right.
They just
I looked it up. It's not
somebody
in there.
made. Yeah, it's not in there. Somebody's made it up. And I don't see anything bad of making up your own styles
Right.
and create new styles and create new beers. That's fine. The program just hasn't caught up with all of that stuff.
We better
yet.
get on that.
Right.
And I
Talking about new styles and stuff, this summer when we were at a couple of the beer fests, we saw that the style that was starting to come out was the brown IPAs.
Brown IPAs, indeed. Yeah, they're adding darkness to the
a little bit
otherwise-
more body to the
right.
hoppiness.
That's good.
So-
well, I think before we go to the next break, I think we've just got to say one thing, and that is, may the Schwarz be with you.
Wow.
I pour about down the side of the glass, about 2/3 of it, and then I pour the rest of it down the middle because I want to create a nice head on the beer. That gives us bouquet and aroma, as well as being, visually interesting. So an all malt beer like Sam Adams will form a really nice head because the head on the beer is protein. In fact, the head is so thick you can actually float a bottle cap on it. Just like a happy little boat floating there. So that's a good measurement of a nice all malt well brewed beer.
Okay, we're back now from the break, and Mike, the crowd has really increased here. They have gathered around because what we have is going to do a little bit of a tasting and see how Mark's way of tasting beer appeals to some of our favorite home brewers. And these guys are from Winfield, Illinois. They're right around the corner. And Mark and his buddy, who's Mike. That's right, because it's Mike and Mike. That's right. Mike and Mark Mike and Mark Van den Bosch, they have produced some rather excellent beers. So what we have here is an Imperial Stout, and we pour them into tasting glasses. And now this isn't readily available commercially, but we hope it will be very, very shortly. John, the owner of John's Tavern, has arrived. John, you have the sample in front of you. Have you paid attention to what Mark has been saying about how to taste beer?
No, I just walked up and sat down.
Okay, good man. All right. We'll be back with him in just a second. Okay, so I poured it out. Let's everybody have a sniff. There'll be a short pause, ladies and gentlemen, whilst people sniff. Okay, so let's see if we've learned anything. Mike, what do you think?
I'm getting some nice burnt, almost not kind of smoky, but a richness to it already.
Okay. I would agree. It's very much the way that I would hope a beer like this would smell. Mark, are we on the nose?
Yes, you're on the nose. You can call it burned. It's roasty. It has roasted malt in it. We use the word roasty a lot in this context, but you guys right on it.
Yep. Okay, good.
I concur.
What was that, John?
I concur.
Okay, he agrees. He's only here for the beer. Okay, so that's good. Now, what was next? The appearance, right? And we look at it, and holy cow, it's as black as your hat. That's what I'd say. Is that official?
We would say opaque.
Opaque.
It's non-opaque.
No.
I can't see a bloody thing through it.
Yeah, I know. It really is a dark beer. Okay. So, obviously, you'd be taking a lot longer time to do this, and you'd write down your notes as Mark says. But we can go ahead and have a little slurp here. So, there'll be a little bit of slurping music.
About the appearance,
okay.
I would say I add to it. It has a long-lasting off-white head.
So you wouldn't call that a brown head, off-white?
Well, yeah, it's not really brown. It's tan at best, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, now, when they taste tea, they do a slurp.
You can do the same thing.
But you can't do that with beer because of the frizz.
He's going to kill himself.
I just told you can do that.
But you did. I'm sorry, I was slurping. I didn't hear you.
You can do that. You can do that.
Michael, what do you think? Wow, bloody hell, you nearly got that down your neck. What the hell?
Well, it's a sampler glass.
Oh, okay.
You're being chintzy with the... we're only sampling. We're tasting. We're not guzzling.
Okay, yeah. Right, what do you think?
Surprisingly, for the color and everything else and the smell, it's extremely light. It's not as far as a texture. It's on the lighter side. It's not... It's kind of in between light and medium. It's not real thick on the tongue.
Excuse me. And it makes you sneeze.
I was waiting, yeah. And it's got the taste is very pleasant. Again, very smooth.
Right.
Almost like Mark said before on the other one. It's a little bit even creamy. It's got a good.
Is he right on?
Yeah,
or do you have a different opinion?
He is right on. We just go mixing a couple of things here. We mix in the flavor and the mouthfeel, but that's okay. There's no problem.
We got to keep it separate.
I would say it has very sweet malty start, and a very beginning it's very sweet, and then the roasted malt kick in, and they really sharp bitterness, almost to the verge of astringency. So it's very, very sharp, bitter finish with it. And that lingers in your mouth for a long time. Also, I taste some chocolate coffee type of notes in there.
John, anything you can add from your tasting? Because I think everybody agrees that, it's a very individual thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would concur with what everybody else's assessment. I think the mouthfeel is quite light. It's not heavy on the palate, and it doesn't seem to me to be really high in alcohol, which I sort of find maybe be a better judge of that, but it doesn't taste like it's higher in alcohol to me, which... Mark will have an addition to that statement. But to me, it just seems like a very drinkable stout.
Isn't that a good thing that
Yeah.
if it doesn't taste of alcohol? Because I think I know what this is, if I can remember rightly.
Right.
What would you say it would be approximately?
First of all, I want to comment what Mike said about the creaminess and the mouthfeel and viscosity, all that. I think you're right on by whatever you said. I agree 100% what you said. When you start talking about the alcohol, I did a quick test. I tilted the glass and see how much was sticking to the glass, and it has legs. We call them legs. So that means the water recedes, but the alcohol sticks to the glass. And this one has quite a bit of alcohol.
Yeah.
We have to say that the brewer has been very skillful by hiding it. You don't have it in your mouth, but this one has kick. There is definitely alcohol in this beer. And that's also, if I can finish saying this, that it's also the lightness or not much body. All the fermentables have gone and fermented into alcohol, so we have lots of alcohol in it.
Uh-huh.
Now, did you ask them about the alcohol content when you picked this up?
I did, and if I remember correctly, he said it was around the 9.5, which I guess for an imperial stout, that's pretty much where it is.
Right.
But I agree, that's what I think attracted me so much because. As far as I'm concerned, it's not drinking a beer because it's high alcohol.
Right.
It's drinking a beer because it's got flavor. This is a beer for the end of the evening. This is a beer for sitting down and enjoying.
This would be good. One of those good ones where it's like it is now. It's slightly on the warmer side. It's not ice cold. Right. This is another one where I would even reach for a beer snifter to put this kind of beer in. And just snip, just sit there and sip it, and not, slam it down and work for to the next one.
I was interested to hear your comment there about the fact that the brewer had been very skillful in his fermentation approach. I think the guys will listen to this and they'll be very impressed with what you have to say. Well, I mean, they won't be impressed. They'll be very happy.
Well, not only fermentation, but in all, in the process of making this beer, that they could hide the alcohol, and that has something to do with what kind of malt you use it in, and how much flavor they impart, and they cover the alcohol so that you can't taste it. And I think that's a skill by itself.
Wow, pretty good. So, John, finally from you, because we've got to wrap up with Mark. You have a lot of craft beers on tap here in your establishment.
There you go.
How do you go about judging what you think is going to be a good seller?
Well, I mean, I think as far as like the craft beer thing and leaving out what kind of marketing a company is going to do, I think we sort of have decided to, or I decided to go into a craft beer selection. I think it sort of depends. There's a group of people that come in, that present company included, that sort of helps out with making selections or styles, right. And depending on the time of year and would dictate what kind of styles you're going to do, and certain breweries, are going to always have something that's interesting, and I actually think that some of the more limited quantity beers sort of creates a certain cachet, amongst beer drinkers that contributes to that, and being able to have that. I know some other places have sort of like specialized in that, right. Having beers that are hard to get or whatever, So.
And we know some of the beers are really good over here. We've had experience of that. Mark, I guess what we'd like to find out finally is, we've talked a little bit about how you go about doing the judging. How long does this take to get to this level of expertise that you have described?
It takes years, because I've been involved all my life, and I'm still learning every day something new. So it's never-ending learning process. So that's the fun part of it all. But just to get into it a little bit more, you can be associated with BJCP and actually take the training classes. Most homebrew clubs provide those training classes. If you're part of the club, belong to the club, mostly they're free or they charge you a little bit of money, but that's very nice way of learning the whole process of BJCP. And also then after you completed your classes, you can take the test that comes from the headquarters or from a specific people, which is outside the club. So it's really true bona fide test where they test your skills as far as brewing and beer tasting is concerned, and 70% is the written part and 30% is the tasting part. Okay, and you have to get at least 60% all together just to pass, and then you be recognized judge, and you can go up from there, take the test again and again and again as many times as you want. But the test is really challenging. You need to know your beer from inside out, and I think the most important part, no matter what you do, is understand your beer styles, the different kinds of beers that are there around, and the BJCP homepage and all that stuff. They give you pointers to where you can learn what all the different kinds of beers are. But I would really highly recommend, because you have more fun to yourself when you know how to taste the beers properly.
Well, I guess we've learned a lot tonight, Mike.
Well, we got a lot of homework to do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
We got a lot of stuff to study and a lot of beer to drink. That's the way I think of it.
And Mark's giving a thumbs up on that. And I guess, Mark, thank you so much indeed for joining us on the program. Now, you have a restaurant down in St. Louis, is that right, that you do brewing?
No, I don't have any restaurants.
Oh, I was wrong about that. Forget about that.
What happened to the stable?
No, I've set up a few breweries in St. Louis area and taught people how to do it and set them up and give them the recipes and all that kind of stuff. One important and interesting part of this, once you learn a little bit more, I want to add this at the end, is that once you drink a beer, see if you can then make a recipe of that beer. What would go into it? How would you make that beer recipe-wise? That's how you can practice that once you go through the training program and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
There are 1,000,001 recipes on the internet, and you can get all of them. But that's not the point. The point is that you take a beer and see, how would I brew this beer? That's nice exercise if you don't want to play board games or something like that.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we get bored with board games. You have a parting comment?
Just John. Pleasure that everybody's here.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, John, for allowing us to come in and
thank you very much.
sequester the corner of your bar.
No problem.
And we're right outside Winfield Station, John's Tavern. Stop by. There's all sorts of delicious brews on tap. There we got our plug in. We've got an official sponsor, mate.
Yeah, well,
there you go.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I guess I hear in the background, hey, Chaz and David, come down. Can you hear them? There they are in the background.
Somewhere. I think they're in the car.
I guess it's one thing to say, and that's good night from me.
And good night from him. Cheers.
Good night. Oh, and by the way, Scott Luce, we didn't forget your list. We just didn't have time this time round. We'll give it to you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Brit and Yankee! Brit and Yankee! I'll have a pint. No, go, give us a pint. You got any tetley's? A pint, please, Bob. Give another pint, please, Bob.